Well, this summer has turned out to be incredibly fruitful for Spain. Just 4 days before its national team defeated the Argentines in the final match of the World Cup, a small Barcelona studio Undercoders, consisting of 10 people, released the most ambitious project in its 20-year history, Denshattack, which burst into the ranks of the highest-rated games of the year with 98% positive reviews on Steam and 88 points on Metacritic. The parallel is so amusing that it would be a sin not to stretch it a little further. While the football world remembers how in 2007 Lionel Messi bathed 6-month-old Lamine Yamal, we will recall that the studio's first major success came after the release in 2013 of Angry Ramos, a parody game about the footballer Sergio Ramos, who instead of Angry Birds was sent flying with a shot from a slingshot. Since then, the team has come a long way, year after year, creating rather niche and specific projects that could not boast of great love from the audience. Looking at their modest portfolio, the last thing you expect to see is a game of this level. In Denshattack, elements of the best arcade franchises on the planet are intertwined. From Subway Surfers and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater to Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi, in order to ultimately deliver a monolithic arcade masterpiece unlike anything else. If the words gameplay and game design in an explanatory dictionary were accompanied by illustrations, next to them would stand a screenshot from Denshattack. Why? You will find out now. Fasten your seatbelts, pure adrenaline is ahead. Source of the image: Fireshin Games, Boltre Games / Undercoders. From the very first frames, the visual style and overall tone of Denshattack evoke irresistible associations with Hi-Fi Rush. Acid cartoon stylistics, cell shading, emphasis on music and dynamics, the game perfectly captures the modern trend for bright dystopias. Instead of the usual hopeless cyberpunk gloom that already makes one nauseous from the news, the developers present their world in the format of a sweet pill. Here, everything is just as bad with ecology and megacorporations, but all this is wrapped in a riot of colors and drive. The action of the game unfolds in a futuristic Japan that has survived an ecological catastrophe, after which the world clearly split according to the level of wealth. Wealthy people leisurely live under special protective domes with clean, filtered air, delicious food, and complete comfort. Outside the domes, life also continues, but there the poorest population huddles, forced to breathe far from the best air and put up with class inequality. The only thread connecting these zones remains a giant railway network. The main heroine Amy works as a ramen delivery girl and races along the rails with such flair that she attracts the attention of photojournalist Fernando Tamashiro. He tells her about the Densha warrior movement who compete in speed and technique of train control. Amy instantly lights up with a new idea, tears off her apron, and following the precepts of Need for Speed. Most Wanted begins to compete with gangs throughout Japan, from provincial Kyushu to Osaka and Tokyo, gaining respect and assembling her own team. Source of the image: Fireshin Games, Boltre Games / Undercoders. The story develops according to all the canons of a typical teenage shonen. I did not believe until the very end that the game was made by Spaniards. It is so saturated with Japanese spirit. Each new region introduces Amy to another bright gang, whose leader first becomes a rival, and after defeat inevitably joins the company of friends. As the hero's popularity grows, the plot develops into a confrontation with the powerful corporation Moredo, which sees Densha warriors as dangerous vandals and even hires Yakuza to eliminate them. The plot does not shock with unexpected twists and is unlikely to make you seriously worry about the heroes, but it captivates with sincerity, kindness, and charming naivety. Even secondary characters are memorable thanks to expressive design, character, and completely insane trains. Between chapters, the narrative unfolds through stylish comic sketches and news with a mole propagandist in the service of the corporation, who retells the consequences of the next mess. No more is required from the story because the main plot twists of Denshattack happen on the rails, from the first uncertain jumps to tricks after which it is time to check whether the gamepad has caught fire while the heart is pounding wildly somewhere in the throat. At first, the game is indeed extremely easy to take for another straightforward mobile runner in the spirit of Subway Surfers. We take control of a train that constantly rushes forward, dodges obstacles, and tries to reach the finish. But all similarities end there. Denshattack, is a full-fledged arcade extreme sports simulator where instead of a skateboard we have a train that can grind on rails, go into a drift, jump, and perform the wildest somersaults in the air. The right stick is responsible for tricks. You can twist it however you like, and at first something will work out. In the starting arsenal, there is also a horn for destroying small obstacles and a sharp slam to the ground, allowing you to avoid a collision with a higher obstacle or cancel an unsuccessful jump so that the train does not fly into the abyss. You will fly off the track often at first, but Denshattack does not irritate at all thanks to an approach in the spirit of Ghost Runner. You race at insane speed and regularly make mistakes, but thanks to tightly placed checkpoints you instantly return to the ranks. Even after a dozen failures, there is no feeling that you are wasting time. The game forgives mistakes and allows absolutely everyone to calmly reach the finish, with the exception of some types of levels. Source of the image: Fireshin Games, Boltre Games / Undercoders. The structure of tasks in general directly refers to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. In each run, there are tasks for completion time, scored points, and additional challenges: drive without accidents, break wooden bridges, scare away bats in a cave, or perform a specific trick. For all this, points are awarded and a final rank is given. To get a gold medal, the level will have to be studied and replayed many times, but this is precisely where the main excitement lies. At the same time, the developers here also did not start choking the poor gamer. All additional conditions do not necessarily have to be completed in one run. You can calmly get a gold medal by first focusing on speed, another time on collecting items and closing achievements, and a third time on scoring the maximum number of points. New trains that open for purchase from the third chapter help greatly in this. Each composition has a unique balance of one positive and one negative passive skill, allowing flexible adaptation to a specific goal. For example, one train simplifies grinding or highlights the ideal window for drifting, but in return cuts the points received for these tricks or narrows the timing itself. Another helps to more easily maintain long combo series, and a third is able to extinguish inertia when passing through tunnels, although it pays for this with a reduction in the final score. The format of the missions itself regularly changes. In the game, there are short sprints of 2-3 minutes, 2-minute arenas where you need to score the maximum points, large-scale locations with several routes on which you need to complete the set goals as quickly as possible, as well as races with other trains. This is where the first serious difficulties may arise because you must finish in the top 3. However, personally, I failed to do this on the first attempt only in one of the final races when the game had gained completely insane revolutions. In the first chapters, the game teaches the basics, but then begins to generously grow with new features. Filling the energy scale with series of tricks opens rainbow in the good sense, tracks, alternative routes that can offer both a difficult challenge with a bunch of points and a safe shortcut as a well-deserved reward. Each chapter introduces a fresh mechanic into the arsenal, from driving on walls and activating switches with tricks to flights on air currents, rides on cable cars, double drifting on 2 rails at once, and magnetic paths that allow you to race upside down. At the same time, the level design also becomes more complicated. The developers weave each new ability into the geometry of subsequent tracks, from time to time arranging a test of the player's strength and finding more and more new ways to amaze him with the unfolding spectacle. Source of the image: Fireshin Games, Boltre Games / Undercoders. Imagine, just now you were rushing inside an erupting volcano, and a few minutes later you are already destroying a construction site, flying up onto a Ferris wheel and spinning it with a 50-ton train. Then you jump onto a boat and slide on the waves like a surfer, hit baseballs with tricks, push off with a slam from mushrooms in an underwater location with lunar gravity, and then fly out onto the ice, knock down giant snowmen, or try to dodge a kaiju destroying a megacity. Does it sound crazy? That is not even the 10th of what Denshattack does, because each of the 65 full-fledged levels is a new attack of game design fantasy. The dynamic camera also does not intend to hang calmly behind the train. It dives under the rails, soars into the sky, turns into profile, and picks spectacular angles for jumps, chases, demonstration of grandiose panoramas and destructions. In 1 second you follow the obstacles ahead, in the next you are already fighting off a pursuer while half the city is collapsing behind your back. Vin Diesel with his Fast and Furious never even dreamed of such a thing. Do you think the authors did not reach the moon? Oh, you cannot even imagine what they arranged on the moon. The culmination of this insane action carousel becomes the battles with bosses that crown each chapter. In essence, the developers use the already familiar toolkit: jumps, drift, grind, slam to the ground, magnetic rails, and air currents. But due to how skillfully the game combines previously introduced mechanics with cool staging and excellent music, the result is bright and memorable battles that necessarily stand out with something unique. Be it a musical duel from the 7th chapter in the spirit of Guitar Hero, or a battle in the clouds against two bosses, where you have to constantly change the polarity of the train in order to reflect flying projectiles back at the opponents. Although the game is often demanding of skills in battles with bosses as well, the same principle works here as in ordinary runs. Checkpoints are placed right inside the boss battle, so in case of death you do not have to start from scratch. And only if you need a gold medal, then you will already have to learn the boss to perfection, filigree working out each phase. From a technical point of view, there are absolutely no questions about the game. Despite Unreal Engine 5 on a build with Ryzen 7 7500F, 32GB DDR5-6000 and GeForce RTX 4070 Super at 1440p resolution on maximum settings, Denshattack delivers stable 144 frames per second, loading the video card barely to 40%. Unfortunately, this celebration of life has not been translated into Russian. There is no localization even at the subtitle level. However, this does not become a critical problem. The dialogues here are quite simple. The plot is easily read from what is happening on the screen, and you do not have to deal with multi-level characteristics and item descriptions. Separately, it is impossible not to praise the soundtrack, on which more people worked than on the entire rest of the game. And what people? More than 20 musicians and performers from all over the world participated in the creation of an impressive tracklist of 80 compositions. Among them are industry legends such as T-Lopes, Sonic Mania, Shoji Meguro, Persona, Sega veteran Takenobu Mitsuyoshi, who worked on the Yakuza series, Virtua Fighter, and dozens of other projects, Harumi Fujita from Capcom, and Richard Jacques, who had a hand in Jet Set Radio, the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and even Mass Effect. In short, just listing the names and regalia of the composers who marked themselves on the album can take more than 1,000 characters. As a result of such a stellar and diverse lineup, the musical accompaniment has turned into an incredible vinaigrette of genres. Japanese rock and pop here are replaced by hip-hop, breakbeat, electronics, drum and bass, and God knows what else. All these listings only outline the overall picture with superficial strokes. The main thing to understand: the music superbly spurs what is happening, adding another couple of 100 kilometers per hour to the speed of the train and another dozen beats to the player's pulse. True, after completing the game, I could hardly recognize even a fifth of the album right away. During a run, the brain is occupied with more pressing questions: which rail to jump on, when to start drifting, and how not to smash a 50-ton composition against the wall. And even if the brightest compositions involuntarily dissolve in the general adrenaline rush, without this textured soundtrack, the game would probably have lost a good half of its arcade nostalgic charm and bright Japanese color. Denshattack is a purebred game in the inhale-exhale style, working on the principle of American roller coasters. You press start, the train instantly takes off, and from that moment you can no longer and do not want to stop. I will say it straight, I have absolutely no complaints about Denshattack. In my understanding, it is flawless, and inventing shortcomings for the sake of imaginary objectivity would be ordinary cunning. When every mechanic works like clockwork, any mistake is only your mistake, and the developers do not exhaust the stock of ideas until the very credits, there is nothing left but to take off your hat to their skill. In 12 hours, Denshattack did not cause me a single negative emotion and did not force me to be bored for a minute. It continuously drove adrenaline through the blood, mixing it with pure audio-visual and gameplay pleasure. This game is pointless to watch, it needs to be played. If you at least missed the times when games were created for unbridled fun and adrenaline drive, passing by Denshattack is a real crime. Buy it, jump on the rails, and get ready for the best ride of your life.